Welcome to Ambassador in the Marketplace, where we challenge your beliefs, we correct any misconception, and we suggest way for you to thrive in the marketplace. As advertised these past few weeks, I've got my guest with me again today. On this episode, her name is Judith Akite, and she will be sharing with us our experience of being a minister in the marketplace. Please welcome with me today, Judith Akite. You're welcome. Please tell us about yourself.
Temi, I am so humbled and grateful to be a guest on the marketplace. You are doing such amazing work. My name is Judith Akite. I'm from Uganda. I'm a mother of one miracle child. That miracle child is the reason I am on this podcast. It's the reason I am all in on whatever that I am doing right now. And I believe God blessed me with this miracle to help me rediscover myself, to help me rediscover my voice. I had for long lost my voice. I had been under the shadows of self-doubt and fear. It was so terrible that it actually affected my productivity even at work, and how I socialized with my colleagues, how I socialized with my friends. It was those few lucky close friends that got to know that true side of me outside the pressures of work and the pressure of society and expectations. I recently transitioned from my day job. I was working in the bank and it's so amazing. I just gotten a promotion at the time, but like it is, sometimes we do not know what the future holds. We do not know about tomorrow. So as I was working in that promotion, I felt something unique. I felt a certain conviction that I had not felt before. This conviction was too strong that I was constantly thinking of how I had journeyed through a phase of infertility. And every time I was remembering that woman who is in that line in the hospital waiting to get checked and is confused about the whole situation. So the conviction really pushed me out of the comfort zone of being in my job. I felt I was now cheating my employer at the time, because most of the time I was just Googling things on fertility, trying to find out how can I be able to help these women who are out there? How can I reclaim my voice to be their voice? And that's when I decided to transition from banking to now fully doing the coaching sessions, which is, I find it so fulfilling. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing about yourself. And now you get into the space of coaching, and we're going to unpack that in a little while. While we're there, tell our audience about your journey of faith, how you got to know God, and how you started journey with Him. Because, like you said, there is a lot that has gone on, and I believe your faith is a part of that. Tell our audience.
Wow, a journey of faith. That has really been a journey. It's been a journey. I knew God when I was very young, as I think it was around primary 3, primary 4. But in the time, it was more of Sunday school, just knowing the basics of the story of Noah, the story of Abraham, basic Bible stories, Jesus' story of birth. Those are the basic things that I knew back then. But growing up, going into other spaces, now from primary, you've moved on to secondary, your mind is kind of now widening. You're getting to know quite a lot of things. You're exposed to quite a lot of things. The journey was not as easy because there are times when you would face really rough times and you wonder, does God really exist? And you ask yourself such questions. You start moving from church to church. You feel like God is not where you want him to be. You move from one church thinking that when you go to the other church, you will find God there. And yet God is everywhere. God is everywhere. That's the fact. So I really struggled. But at the back of my mind, even when I felt that God's presence was not like there in the moment, at least I always knew that God exists. And that really helped me a lot, because there are so many times when I would break down, especially in school. And I was raised in a foster family. So many times during visitation, people would be visited by their parents. And there was that sense of belonging that was a bit lacking. You would wonder, I wish also my parents would come and check on me. But my foster parents really did their best. They always did their best to try and show up. But in the event that they were busy, they always sent someone to represent. But there is that sense of belonging that a child attached to a parent has, that a child who is not attached to the parent doesn't have. And that thing I longed for a very long time. Because through secondary, because of these emotional tolls on trying to figure out where your belonging is, trying to figure out who you are, because of self-doubt and fear, I somehow lost myself. And in so doing, I was not concentrating so much on my studies. So I didn't really perform that well. So when we finished secondary, we were supposed to join university, and my points were not that good to join university. So my guardians, they told me, now that you've got these few points, which university will take you? And I remember crying to God, and I'm like, God, I am better than this. Like, I can achieve that which you have purposed for me. And I prayed to God to provide my guardians with money that would find me a place, even if in just any vocational institution, for me to go ahead in life. And truly, God blessed me. God blessed me. And my guardian looked at it in another angle and gave me money to go and apply for a university course. I applied in 2 universities and I was taken in 1. And when I got there, same thing, self-doubt, fear, feeling like you're inadequate. Always, there was that thing that I couldn't explain, and I didn't understand why I always felt that way. But there was something unique. Even in that self-doubt, I always knew I could do something with this life. And that's something I felt there was a stronger power behind it, and that was God. And I remember every low moment that I would have, I would cry out to God, and God would come through different people and different opportunities. So I went into university and I graduated without any retakes, and that showed me that much as I didn't perform so well in the previous phase of my life, it doesn't mean that I am a failure. It was just because maybe at that point, my mental state was not in the right place. My emotional state was not in the right place. And now that I finished university, I felt I have conquered. God has taken me through all these 3 years of studies, and I have graduated. So the next thing was now praying for a job. And it's so amazing that the job that I got, first job, I applied on the very last day. We were at uni doing some graduate into employment training, and I just saw a notice of that job. And I said, let me give it a try. I applied. The requirements were far from what I had. It's amazing the things that God can do. The requirements were far, far from what I had. They wanted a first class. I didn't have the first class. They wanted distinctions in math and English. I didn't have those. They wanted someone who had sales experience of 1 year. I didn't have that either. But I applied with hope and with faith that I'll get the job. And then they called me up after 2 weeks for the interviews. And we did interviews with amazing, amazing people who were speaking of how they had their first class, how they have gone to this school and that school, you know, that interaction moment. And I was like, wow, am I in the right place? Like, will I really get this job? It's amazing. After 2 weeks, I get another call that we first did the aptitude. So they called me up for an oral interview. And I did the oral interview. Then they told us they will give us feedback after a week. Before the week elapsed, they called me back for the final interview with the executive director that time. And 1 week later, I received my appointment letter. And that's how I got the job. But I started this job and I grew through the ranks. I worked for 9 years plus. I worked for 9 years, and it's in the 9th year that I had gotten a promotion. I moved from sales executive to banking officer. From banking officer, I moved to chief teller. From chief teller, now I had moved to assistant manager. But then that's when the conviction to leave my job came. And so I wondered, I asked God, why would you ask me to leave the job that you have given me to sustain me for all these 9 years, to step into something that I do not even know how I will do it, or how it will turn out, or how it will work out? I was confused. But I remember praying so hard about it, and God speaks. God truly speaks. God started speaking through. I used to wonder when people would say that I encountered God, I heard from God. I'd be like, how, when, where? But I remember that moment so vividly. I had logged onto my phone, and you know how you log into YouTube and a pop-up just comes, and the notification was showing a preaching by Bishop T.D. Jakes that was on courage to change course. And I was like, how timely is this message? Courage to change course, and I am here struggling to change course. And then when I listened in, he preached about Moses' story, how he was born in an era where they were to kill all the male child. And then God had a purpose for Moses' life, so they weaved a basket, put him in and put him on the water, and he moved on to the other side where God had destined him to be. And then he asked that, do you know that the day that Moses was, do you know how old Moses was when he was weaved in the basket through the water to the other side? And I remember him saying that he was only 8 days old. Then he continued to mention and said that, do you know what 8 means in the biblical meaning? And I asked myself, what could it be? And he continued to say that 8 is a number of new beginnings. And then I looked at my calendar on the laptop, and it was 8th of February 2024. Now, this is a sermon that was recorded 2 years back. How is it that it has come on 8th of February and they are telling me that 8 is a number of new beginnings? Now, that's where my encounter with God became so intimate. I started praying so intimately, asking God, if this is what you want to do me, then give me direction. Like, position people in my life for me to be able to do this which you're calling me to do. And I remember at the time, it was in January when I came on LinkedIn. I was never active on LinkedIn. But in January, when I was torn between my job and calling, that's when I embraced LinkedIn, not to build a brand, but rather to look for a job in an NGO this time, a job that would fit what I wanted to do. I was like, at least if I get a job in an NGO that is giving services to women, I can infuse my calling in between there. But amazingly, I applied for all the jobs I could apply. With my master's, internationally recognized master's, I didn't get any. I would only get emails of we regret informing you that da 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 da. The emails were quite disappointing and discouraging. So I prayed to God. I'm like, if I leave this job, how then are we going to survive? I wondered. So when I was wondering about that is when I read a story on LinkedIn. I read actually 2 stories. One was of Moses. I don't quite remember the other name. And then of Swift Minds. Then the other was a story of Coach Betty Ojil. Now, if anyone has read my LinkedIn posts, I always tag her along because it's the only way I can show her appreciation of how much she has been pivotal in this journey. So I read a story of Coach Betty. She had put a story of before and after. And her story was of her transitioning from her current job to calling. And it resonated deeply. So I sent her a DM telling her how her story had impacted me. And from there, we moved from LinkedIn to WhatsApp to now calls. And then finally, we met physically. And it's amazing that she took me on for mentorship for an entire year, January to December. And I was like, God, this is you speaking. This is you showing me the direction. Because I was wondering, how am I going to do these things? I didn't have any idea. So when Coach Betty took me on for mentorship, that was a sign from God.
I'm taking a break to ask you to please subscribe to my channel, like and share this program with your friend and network, and click the notification button. I hear you say, why should you subscribe? This channel is run with integrity, and my vision is to educate and correct misconception and myths about how to showcase your faith in the marketplace. When you subscribe, you will be the first to receive my next video and learn how to be authentic in the marketplace so you can be a good ambassador. Drop a comment in the chat box and let me know you have subscribed, and I will direct message you and send you a copy of my ebook called A Shrewd Wise Dove. Thank you for supporting this program, and I'm looking forward to see your comment and to read your comment. God bless. Thank you so much for sharing that story of how God has been guiding you and how God has been leading you. And we thank God. And you share something quite pivotal about being a foster child, and sometimes people feel disconnected, and God has a way of just embracing us and letting us know that I'm there for you. I will be that connection, and you can have a sense of belonging in me, and I will lead you and take you by the hand and lead you by the way. So tell us about that journey of infertility. On your LinkedIn page, you've talked about going through fibroid, block tube, different surgery. Tell us, how did you navigate that process? And we'll talk about things around how it impacts your health. But tell us about your journey briefly.
That journey, that journey I have shared, and I can share any day, anytime. The journey of infertility started in the lockdown of 2020. That's when the body changes were so drastic. Everything kind of flipped upside down. And just to mention, it's not like it had been there, but I didn't know. I didn't know because oftentimes when I started having these periods much earlier, nobody told me that painful periods are a thing. Every time you went to the hospital, they would just tell you it is okay, just take some painkillers, you're still young, you'll be fine. And that was it. And so you would bear this pain month in, month out, month in, month out. And time came and the pain was unbearable. So at 29, that was in 2020, when I made 29, I suddenly gained weight. 2 weeks, I gained 10 kgs. That was quite something. And I remember even walking around, the neighbors would look at you with this surprised face of, what just happened to you? Like, just 2 weeks ago, you were this size and now you're here? And they would ask questions like, are you pregnant? Like, then they would tell you, congratulations. Like, all those comments kept coming in. And I wondered, how am I going to tell these people that I'm not pregnant? How will I keep explaining to everyone who asks me? Then I was wondering what I could do about it, because at the point I had now started experiencing those telltale signs of something is wrong. My legs would fill up, they would swell, and then I would have very sharp back pains, I would have abdominal pains, I would have headaches, and I wondered, what is it that I can do about this thing? So I went to the hospital and had myself checked out because the weight was too much and the belly had blown out as if pregnant. That's why people were congratulating me. So when they checked, they told me I had fibroids. And the first hospital that I went to, they just did the scan and they told me bluntly, you have fibroids, you should consider having kids. No deep explanation, no thorough investigation of this is this bad. And so I went home wondering. I wailed, I asked God, what is happening? Like, I don't understand what is going on. So I had to go to another hospital to do the same checkup and confirm if at all the diagnosis was right. And yes, it was. They told me I had fibroids, and this time, the first time they told me they were 5, now they were telling me they are 7. And I'm like, wow, how am I supposed to deal with this? But it was tough because lockdown, the movements were restricted, and you just had social support was lacking. So it was more of just call somebody, cry about it, and sleep over it. And it went on for a while until the day when I visited another hospital. They did the scan and told me how bad the fibroids were. They told me that the fibroids were located in very delicate positions in the uterus that could cause my uterus to rupture and I lose it. So they immediately organized for a surgery and requested me to think over it in the shortest time possible to be able to save my uterus. So I did, and we arranged and had the surgery done. They removed the fibroids, thankfully, and I thought all is well. 2021, we start the phases of fertility treatments because now the doctor had spoken to us about considering having the baby and all that. So we talked about it and agreed. So we started trying 2021. 2021, nothing happened differently the entire year. So we wondered what could be the problem. We thought fibroids were the issue. Then they recommended we do a scan for the tubes to find out if the tubes are okay. And wow, the tubes were not okay. The tubes were blocked. So they put us on some treatment in the meantime for about more 6 months to see if any change happens, and nothing happened differently. So they requested that we consider having another surgery to correct the tubes. Now, I'm still healing from the trauma that I had to go through the first time, and having to process all these emotions that come with the fertility treatments and the effects of the medications, having to move in and out of the work space, and people are wondering, you are no longer productive. It was tough, but I remember speaking to my boss and opening up and telling my boss that I'm having quite an issue with my health. So I pray that you can pardon me whenever I have to move out of the workspace to go to the hospital. And I'm glad that the team at the time were considerate and understanding. So they granted me that opportunity to be in and out of the workspace. And later on, we agreed and did the surgery for the tubes. And after that, we thought all is well. Now we have done the surgery, the tubes should be fine. Tried for more 6 months, nothing was happening differently. So we wondered, what could the problem be? Did another test, they tell me I have PCOS. PCOS is a polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's a hormonal imbalance kind of condition which brings about irregular periods. It's you've seen women who have beards, then women who have deep voices, acne on the skin, different signs for different women. And mine was to do with the hormonal imbalance in terms of irregular periods. And then they told me I had a condition where I had multiple eggs in the ovary, but none of them were viable. So they all needed support to be treated for me to be able to have a viable egg to have conception happen. So we did those treatments for the egg boost, and nothing still was happening differently. So it reached a point, and now the doctor started just sitting us down and preparing us for the next best option, which was now the artificial, which is IVF. And at the point, my heart had not settled for IVF. I was still hoping and praying that God will do something about this situation. And I remember going for prayers. It was a deliverance prayer. And the priest at the time looked at me and told me, "You are healed. Receive your healing." Now, to me, that is what I went for that day. Like everything else that was preached, everything else that was talked about, I forgot about it. That's the thing that I took out of that deliverance prayer. And I kept holding on to it, saying that I am healed and I've received my healing. So we go back for the next doctor's appointment, and they tell me to check the tubes again because the treatment had not worked. And they find out that one of the tubes is okay, but the other is still not okay. So that's the point that even the doctor now started advising us and telling us there's a reason God gives us 2 body parts. There's a reason God gives us 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 ovaries, 2 tubes. Like, if you realize, almost all our body parts are in pairs. So he told us, if one is not working, God can still work through the other to beat the ordinary, because God does the impossible. And I walked believing with that. Then a time came for the treatments and I was discouraged. I was like, but I've done this over and over again and nothing seems to be happening differently. So what do I do now? Should I just give up? Something in me told me, how about if this is your miracle month and you are not trying? So I went to the pharmacy, got the medication, took the medications, and then that month we tried, and that was in August. So the whole of August, I tested and the tests were all negative. And I was like, God, what is happening? Like, I can't keep crying each time I get these negative tests. When am I going to be like happy that I've gotten my miracle? You would even have weird prayers of, okay, let me just have a positive test even if it is false. Because you just want to see those 2 lines. So the first time I tested, it was around day 35 and it was negative. Then I tested around day 38 after like 3 days, still negative. So I was like, this thing, maybe even this time it has not worked. So let me just hold on and wait for the next cycle. And along the way, around day 45, I'm coming back from work with a friend. And I just feel the urge to take very cold water. And that was not the usual because I like room temperature water. So I took the water and finished the entire water in the bottle. And I was like, no, this is not me. There's something ordinary about me today. And I felt led to go and buy the strips. So I buy the strips. I bought there were 5 or 4. I went home, got my glass jar, and put my sample, and then I dip in the stick. And I moved away because I didn't want to see the negative test, but again, I wanted to see what's up with me. So I checked later in a few seconds, and it had 2 lines. I was like, what? Like, how can this be that I checked all these days and nothing was there, and now miraculously something has planted? Like, what is that? So I dipped in all the sticks that I had, and all of them had 2 lines. And I was like, wow, God, you are amazing. You have no idea the emotions I had around that time. As confused, as excited, as frustrated, as everything. I jumped, I was happy, but then I was crying, and it was just too overwhelming at the moment. And I remember calling the doctor and telling him, then I sent him a screenshot and he said, congratulations, but let's keep calm. Come and meet me the next week so we have this checked out and we confirm if it's a viable pregnancy. Oh my God. Now that took me back. All the excitement I had just went to rest. Because now I'm thinking, supposing it's not viable, supposing it is the ectopic. I started now thinking of all these negative thoughts. And he asked for a week, but the week seemed like a year. I waited for the week to end and it was not ending. And at the end of the week, yes, we did the test, and wow, the heartbeat was perfect. The position was perfect. Everything was perfect. And I said to God, thank you, God. This is my miracle. Help me keep this miracle to full term and let me be a testimony of your goodness. And I'll glorify your name, sharing my story with people so that they can have hope and build faith in your works. I didn't know that the prayer that I was praying will actually come to pass. And I remember when I check my notebooks, every prayer that I made at the time, I would be like, God, help me in this struggle so that I find my purpose while going through this phase. And it is exactly what happened at the end of the fertility journey. When the story changed, that is now the direction that I have taken.
Wow, it's amazing how God, somebody said God God loves drama. God has a way of just writing a story with our lives, and obviously when you're going through the story, it's not fun and you're not enjoying it necessarily, but God is using it to work out something, because somebody needs that story. Somebody needs that story to be able to walk through their life and their purpose. And and sometimes I do think that if we didn't go through those things, are we actually gonna walk in purpose? Or are we still gonna be telling God, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it, go and find somebody else to do it? But making it real, because the reality also is that people identify with you because they know that you have been through the process. Tell us about how you are now supporting women. You talked about the mental side of things, the physical side, the emotional side, and the spiritual side. How are you, representing Christ in that space?
What people need to do is to remember at the back of your mind that behind all this that is happening, there is a higher authority above us. And that higher authority is not your mom. That higher authority is not your dad. It's not your auntie, not your friend, but it is God. It is God who has created us in his image. And he has a purpose for us. There's that verse that says God knew us before we were even formed in our mother's wombs. It is so true. It is so true, because God takes you through phases and you even wonder, how will I move on to the next? Like when you look back, I'll just challenge whoever is going through something. Just look back through your life all the way from childhood and look at the things that you thought would not pass, the things that you thought were so difficult. Ask yourself, how is it that I am here now? If it had not been for God, other people like to call it the universe, but it is God. If it had not been for God, you would not be where you are now. So start being grateful about those small achievements, small achievements. And then you build your positivity around those small achievements. When you're grateful for something small, God even blesses you with something bigger, because he knows that if I gave this person this little thing and they were able to appreciate it and grow it and multiply it, I can trust them with a bigger thing. And indeed, God will always come through.
Wow, I like what you said about gratitude, and I think that's the thing. We focus on the negative and the little positive that is there. We don't seem to say, like, all this is not working, but what about this one in the corner that is working, that is thriving, and is, and we cry about those things, and God was like, but you're not being grateful because I've just given you that. You might not have everything, but you have a roof over your head, or you have something. Why are you not grateful for that? And then you use that gratitude to get something else, or to draw on something else. And I like what you said, that still being grateful, because there are people that are not alive. Thank you for sharing that. As part of obviously the work you do, I want us to talk to us about the Quiver. I love that name when I saw it on your profile, and I want you to just talk to us about Quiver and talk to us about what you do and how people can connect with you as well.
Now, Quiver is a beautiful word. Quiver means waiting in anticipation for God to act. It's a Hebrew word that means waiting on God to act. And what better way to wait on God to act than to believe that he will act? So that's how the name came up, and it wasn't entirely me that came up with the name. I remember at the time when I was thinking of a name, a company name, I remember reaching out to a friend who was already in business. She's called Charlotte. So she advised me. My initial name was Moms in Waiting. That was the initial name that I had. And then she said, yes, Moms in Waiting is good. It's excellent, but it's not unique. Anyone can say Moms in Waiting. So she told me, make it a bit unique. Maybe find a Hebrew word to mean waiting, or find a Greek word to mean mom. Just make it a little unique. And that's how I came up with the mom's cover to mean Moms in Waiting. It's still the same thing, but now different in a way, different in the appearance and all that. And it really resonated well because the word cover, that's why I tag it along Isaiah 40:31, because that is where the entire waiting idea came from. Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their spirit and their strength in the Lord. And I felt that was rightfully perfect for the name of the business, because that's entirely what I want to do, to help the people that are in a waiting season. And that's what I feel God has led me to do. And now when I stepped out to do this business, I was truly scared. I had so much doubt and fear. But I remember reading a verse. It was still about Moses. I think God picked out an icon for me in the Bible that resonated well with the season that I am in. And the verse was in Exodus chapter 4, verse 10, where Moses was complaining to God that he feels he's not eloquent to speak to people and change people's lives. Why doesn't God choose his brother instead to be able to speak to the people? And God particularly insisted that it is you that I want, and I'm the one who gives you the words to speak. So if I have called you, then go do my work. So when I read that verse, I was not an outspoken person from the beginning. I used to love my space a lot. I was not all out there. But when I read that verse, it really triggered something in me. I was like, wait a minute, why am I complaining? Yet I can speak and somebody can listen to me. So that's the time that I picked up on the public speaking courses. I signed up for Coach Betty's communication class to be able to become a better speaker, voice my opinions more, and have an audience that understands the communication that I put across. So I started doing personal development. It all started with me because I really needed to work on myself first. I started occupying spaces that have growth-oriented people, and they would challenge me, give me feedback. Every time I spoke, they gave me feedback on how I performed. And it just got better each and every time. And the progress is really good. And I remember people started referring those women in the waiting season to me because most of them knew about my story. And the first lady that I remember walking the journey with, we started with her last year, around the time when I was about to give birth. I met her in April last year. And she was struggling. She had been in marriage 5 years. 5 years in marriage, wedded in church, no baby, in-law pressure, societal pressure, work pressure. And she had lost it. She had lost courage. She was just in a moment where she didn't know who she was. She was just living life as it is and not living life to fulfillment or purpose. So when we met, I shared my story with her. Little did I know that it was that impactful. And she told me, wow, so you have gone through all these and you have got your baby and you are still working. She was so amazed. So she challenged herself to do better. And after that talk, I remember we cried through the beginning, but towards the end, it was all joy, laughing. And she told me how encouraged she was to do better. And then she told me she had never actually gone to the hospital for a checkup. All this while, she had just been using these local medications. And I told her, it would be better to check so you know what exactly the problem is. And I'm glad she took the advice on and did the checkup. And they found out the tube had an issue. They did a corrective surgery and it was corrected. Then 5 months into her treatments, she calls me and she tells me she has something to tell me. But in this period, we had been communicating. So I knew what she was up to. But the 5th month, when she called me and told me she had something to tell me, in my heart, I knew this lady wants to tell me she's pregnant. So I tell her, are you pregnant? And she's like, how did you know that I'm pregnant? I'm like, I don't know, but I just felt it that that's what you want to tell me. And I hope it is what you want to tell me. So later on, months later, she moved into her pregnancy well and everything was fine. And it was when she was 7 months, she calls me and she tells me that before I go to church, she has something to tell me. That time she called me very early at 6 in the morning, just to surprise me. And she told me, Gina, I haven't even told my husband. You're the first person I'm telling this thing. And I'm like, wow, is it twins? And she's like, no way. There is no way you're telling me it is twins, and it is twins. They are twins. Oh my God, we screamed. We were so excited. And she recently gave birth early this month to twin boys. And that was a confirmation that this is the right route that I am taking, and God is really leading me to places that I didn't see myself going to. And after her story, a lot more women came through asking about my services. And then during the bootcamp, they advised us to create a link where people can book calls and find out what exactly you do. So I put out that link and I've been getting amazing inquiries, and some are signing up for the coaching sessions, and it's really humbling that God can move you from a place of doubt to a place of courage and belief in his works. So after working on myself and helping another lady and seeing that she has moved from sadness to happiness, from frustration to fulfillment, I felt the need to do the same for other women. And so now we have broadened it up, and I'm offering personal development skills to those women that I encounter. I'm offering mental health advocacy. I help them through their mental state to be able to look at the brighter side of life. And so if someone is dying in silence, they don't have anyone to talk to, they don't have anyone to run to when they have an issue, it becomes very daunting on their lives. And you might find the worst case scenario being a suicide because someone feels they are helpless, they don't have anyone to talk to. So we offer mental health services to help them find the better side, the brighter side of life. Then also we link them up with the fertility specialists that can help them navigate the medical side of the story while we do the social support and mental support. Yes.
Thank you so much for that. So you haven't told our audience how they can reach you. I'm sure there's a number of people who are listening to us who know somebody that they're thinking, I think this, my friend, will need to speak to someone like you, or they are in that space currently and they're thinking, maybe this is another opportunity for me to actually, give it a go and step out of that space. Please tell us how people can reach you.
People can reach me mostly at the moment. I'm using my LinkedIn and Instagram. So they can't just type Judith Akite. They'll be able to identify which Judith Akite. On LinkedIn and Instagram, those are the ones that I'm active on.
So we will share your details definitely on our program, and it will be at the bottom, and it will be for people on LinkedIn. The details will also be on LinkedIn, and for people on YouTube, we will do the same, and for people on Facebook, we will do the same in the comment section. So watch out for it and just look through the details, and it will be on the screen as well. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share your story with us. You have advised, you have given women advice. And actually, before you go, I wanted to ask you, what would be your advice for the men who are actually, married to these women, or their sisters we're talking about, or, a friend? What would be your advice of how a man can support this group of women?
Good question. I really, really love that question. The men can support these women by just offering support. Like, offer support, be willing to listen to them and watch them, see how, because this journey brings in a lot of mood swings. So somebody really has to have the patience to be able to take on the mantle to support a person in this phase. So what I would advise them is just give them grace, like give the people who are going through such grace and support them and help them to rediscover themselves and believe that tomorrow will be better. And it's not just actually the women that go through this. I believe for couples that are going through infertility, if you are together on the same page, the man also is going through his own side of emotional toll and spiritual, all these physical things. He goes through his own share of the phase. But it's just that most times men don't speak about these things. Probably they do with their fellow men, but they don't usually speak about it. I believe that if a couple is going through a phase, you can speak about it as a couple. Share your experience. How is it treating you every time you have negative tests? Because for a woman, it's natural. Their emotions will come out so quickly. You cry about it, you change your moods and all that. But for a man, sometimes they don't show. You don't know if they are sad. You don't know if they are struggling. So being open and offering support and extending grace to each other is the way we can build these support groups and support communities.
Thank you so much. It's been a privilege. It's an honor to have you on the program. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for enlightening our audience. Thank you for letting them know that they can thrive even in the midst of infertility. Wherever you are, I want to say thank you for listening and God bless.